Okay, so thanks a lot for the opportunity to share with you what we're doing. Very fast forward, there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of factories who has huge challenge of both go on and producing and in parallel reduce carbon footprint and huge amounts, which basically means that COOs in this world need, first of all, a tool that will help them to understand what is actually going on the ground in terms of footprints, and will help them to budget and manage the reduction processes for the next 15 years. And this is exactly where Factoree comes in. Basically, what we are doing is to aggregate data from different sources in the production floors, automation layers, ERPs, quality systems, aggregate all this data automatically and produce automatic models of the production process. In this case, for example, you can see a process of a synthesis, and the idea is that we are analyzing all the data and automatically identify the main steps of the production process across products, across sites, and understand exactly what goes in, what goes out, and how much time each step takes, which allows us, first of all, identify exactly what are the different emissions which are associated to different production processes, set operational environmental goals, and following that, detect opportunities of reduction, whether it will be different areas of detection of operational anomalies, changes of energy mixtures, or different elements regarding raw materials. Factoree has been established a year ago. Since then, immediately we've got a lot of data from our design partners, which is the Syngenta group, and immediately made in the last few months, we actually went through a big number of POCs, and currently we're starting our initial go-to-market with the Syngenta group around the monitoring part. And during 2023, are planning to launch the diagnostic package as well. We're currently raising our seed round, following to a save that we've already raised. I'll be very happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Wow, very fast, very efficient. Thanks for that. Let me pull Pratibha back in here, and then we can get started. While I'm doing that, I mean, my first big question is just, who is your ideal customer then? Is it chemical companies and producers? Who are you looking to sell to?
So we are the type of companies we are starting with are chemical companies and building material companies, and all the material manufacturing world. And within the organization, we are targeting COOs, and in the future we'll also target CFOs, but we're not ready for that yet.
You want to take things away, Pratibha?
Sure, absolutely. Could you speak to your tech stack a little bit more? I'm curious about, is this something that you are looking at, just the data points that you've trained your, or data set, what is the outcome that a COO would be receiving? Is it recommendations? It's just love to understand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so very, very fast forward. This is the factory. This is how it looks. Usually it contains a lot of different production lines sitting in the specific buildings and a lot of utilities that supporting these production buildings. Within this stock, you have different systems, ERP, quality, many data points. That first of all, the goal is to aggregate automatically and extract out of all this mess one big understanding of how a production process looks like, something like that. We are limiting ourselves, by the way. The approach is to provide a horizontal view, which basically means to understand what are the steps, what goes in, what goes out, and how much time does it take. In the minute that you have this thing automatically and you can actually trust it, so first of all, you can set operational KPIs and environmental KPIs, allow the COOs to set operational environmental KPIs to each site in which you will find Factoree. and start the reduction process, move forward. And the other piece would, sorry, I don't have it here. And then the other piece actually to look on different abatement opportunities, whether it will be detection of operational anomalies, whether it be different elements of energy mixture, changing of raw material, and over time we'll of course will implement other things like carbon capture and stuff like that. But the idea is that if you are a COO and you have 100 or 50 sites around the world, they all the time has been analyzed, you understand exactly what is going on, and the system is looking for opportunities for reduction. As in each place, in each geography, in each production process, the opportunities will look a bit differently. So the idea is to flesh where the opportunities are, combine them with the strategic aspirations of the organization, and provide a system that identifies these opportunities and pushing it forward for execution.
Got it. Thank you. Can I ask one more question, Matt, before?
Yeah, of course.
Curious about your pricing model. How does that look?
So we are focusing on a site level pricing because for us, it is a fundamental element to cover the site end to end. And as a starting point, we have, for chemicals, for example, we have small site, mid-size, and big sites. The price point for big size sites would be around 150K. But of course, this is the prices that we're starting with for the monitoring piece. And there is still way to go to validate this approach. For sure, it has to be on the site level because analytically wise, we have to cover the site as a whole. Otherwise, we will lose huge amount of data and won't be able to fulfill our tasks.
Got it. Thank you.
Which of the MD or R do customers find most valuable and why?
Sorry, I'm not so sure.
Monitor, detect, and reduce. Which of those three is kind of the big value? Which is the one they have to have, and which are the nice to haves?
Well, eventually they have to have all of them if they want to reach their operational goals. Usually it's a bit hard to detect if you are not monitoring. So, it's an evolution. It's easier to provide the monitoring. The detection and the reduction involve recommendations, so it takes more time to develop. But eventually they need all of them.
What's your background? Why are you doing this?
So I'm dealing with process optimization in manufacturing for the last 8 years. My previous company was still dealing with deep optimization of processes. I'm dealing with digitalization in general for the last 25 years and dealing with environmental areas for the last 15 years, both as a not-for-profit, as an investor in different companies. So it's areas that are important to me. That's not much. And by mistake, I also understand data infrastructures in manufacturing.
Is that what makes you unique? There's a lot of people trying to create digital twins of either supply chains or manufacturing processes, etc. Why are you guys 10x better?
So first of all, I don't know if we're better or worse. I think that looking from the startup perspective, I think there are two elements. First of all, we know that infrastructure and manufacturing, it's not something it's not something straightforward. I mean, there are many people who can learn to do it. The entry barriers are relatively high. It takes time. The other element that we have very deep design partnership with a lot of factories, and we've basically got full data infrastructures of these factories before starting write code. Usually, if you will try to do it yourself, it will take you at least a year, if not more, just to get to a point that you are starting to look on data. So I assume that we are well positioned to run faster than anyone else. I don't think that we have something more unique than that.
But if you're running,
sorry, go
just
ahead.
one follow-up to that, and then you're up, Pratibha. Sorry. Yeah. If you're running faster than everyone else, but there is so much setup and time, how do you scale something like that quickly if it is really intensive and hands-on in the modeling process?
So, and I think this is exactly the thing. Today, it takes us around 3 days to create one model for one product, which, by the way, good enough to start with. And within 6 months from now, we will do a situation that we're doing it within 3 to 4 hours, including the QA of someone on the ground. And this is basically the key, the capability to do it fast, which means also that you can do it much cheaper. To compare companies that are dealing with process optimization, for example, who didn't invest in the scalability of the onboarding and AI systems to support it, can do it today within 2 to 3 weeks of onboarding for one production line, which means basically that their business model, under their circumstances, they have to charge at least 100K a year for one production line. This is basically what we're targeting for the site as a whole.
Okay. Pratibha?
So that's super helpful, Leo. Curious about your projection for this year. Could you speak a bit to the pipeline and how confident do you feel about being able to meet the 2023 revenue target?
So I'm pretty much confident. We already submitted the first purchasing order to Adama with the first 3 to 4 sites. And right now it's under approvals. And the next step will be Standard Industries, with whom we're already starting to work, and Syngenta Group. In terms of pipeline, I think we are good. We have very deep relationship in this sphere and very good relationship with strong channel partners as well. As an example, my chairman for the last few months is actually his name is Alec Fox. He was a number 2 in Rockwell Automation in the global one, the SVP corporate development of Rockwell. So we're already starting to work with Rockwell towards the step when we will be mature enough in terms of digesting more projects. And we have our own internal relationship with manufacturers that I've built for the last 8 years. So I guess first step, we are good. Next step, anyway, will come through channels. We won't do it ourselves.
And as Matt alluded, there are several players in the market trying to attempt to do this. I'm curious to hear, who do you believe is your closest comparable today?
It's a great question, because basically there are 2 main segments who are approaching more or less the same challenge, but from completely different angle. One would be all the environmental accounting companies. I don't think that it's a real competition. We certainly not look at it as a competition, because environmental accounting companies don't have the data and the modeling that we have. As simple as that. And we are not building environmental accounting models. So actually in the future, we will push data to this type of solutions. From the other side of the spectrum, there are companies who are doing things like we used to do in my previous company, which is different process optimization companies. They certainly have the knowledge to do this type of things exactly as we do, but they don't have the technology, because to optimize one project process versus analyze horizontally all the factory, it's completely different products and completely different technological stacks. So theoretically, there are companies who can do it, and I believe that there will be companies that are doing it. On the big companies level, those who I'm communicating with, like Rockwell, like Schneider Electric, like Honeywell, they're not doing this type of things yet, because they're trying to reposition their own products. From the startup perspective, again, to move from process optimization to what we are doing, it's like to build a new company with people who know what they are doing, but still it's a completely different technological stack. And this is why I'm building Factoree as a new company and not doing it as extension to my previous one.
Got it. And in terms of the financing lift that you will need to undertake to create to get this product to profitability, how do you anticipate your cap structure looking like over the next 2 to 3 years?
So to get to a point that we can support the massive penetration, which would be, let's say, 60, 80, 100 sites, We're right now estimating on the engineering level that we will need around $4 million to get to this point. And this is basically what we are planning to do within the next 18 months. The main technological barrier is actually to jump from a few sites to 60 to 80. If you have 60, 80, you have 800 as well. You're actually getting closer to the full stack SaaS value proposition. Okay. In between, you're not building everything today. Part of the things you are trying to postpone because we don't have enough resources yet. But right now, with 4 million, we will get to an infrastructure that will allow us to implement effectively the monitoring piece and come out with the initial value propositions around the diagnostics. I'm emphasizing initial because the diagnostic part is, it's never-ending story, and there is a lot to add, or a lot of depth and IP to develop around this world. As I said, right now we're looking on detection of operational anomalies and energy mix and all these type of things, which are closer, let's call it, to positive ROI, which is good supporter to fast implementation because it creates value. Later on, we will have to touch things which are not more complex technologically wise, but business wise, it's certainly more complex, like carbon capture and changing of raw materials and stuff like that.